Welcome to the Clear the Air podcast, episode 3. My name is Jenna. I am the show host and the founder of Clear the Air, both the podcast and the blog. And I'm excited today to be talking about a topic that is very important to me, vegetarianism, and how to become a vegetarian with 5 key steps. So I have a lot of friends and family that are interested in eating a more plant-based diet, and they don't really know how to start. They don't know how to reduce their meat in their life, or how to say no to the meat, or how to talk to their family and friends about wanting to eat less meat. It can be a tricky topic for sure, especially when we live in this world that's so focused on meat, where I grew up where you have your protein, which was a meat, you have veggies, and then you have some sort of grain on your plate. That was the common thing. But nowadays it's changing. People are eating more plants, they're eating more grains, they're more focused on whole foods for their diet, which is amazing. People are more and more interested in becoming vegetarians or eating more plant-based, but don't know where to start. So having been a vegetarian for almost 2.5 years now, solidly, I want to say close to 3 is when I started eating more plant-based. But for almost 3 years of being a vegetarian, I have learned a lot through what I've done and my process, and I want to share that with you to make your transition easier, because I definitely hit some bumps in the road during my transition, and it's important for you to know what to do if you want to make this transition. Before we start, just a disclaimer, I'm sorry in the last episode if you heard this weird kind of thumping noise. So I heard that in the first episode that I recorded, and I thought it was my water bottle that I was tapping. So I changed that water bottle. I said, no, for the second episode, we're not using it. But then I realized it's actually if I touch the microphone stand or I move it, it makes this weird sound. So I apologize for that. I tried to minimize that in the last episode, but then I realized, nope, it's still there. So I'm going to make sure I don't touch the microphone stand this episode so we don't have that annoying sound. If you don't know what I'm talking about, then don't worry. I guess it's not as noticeable as I think. Why would someone want to become a vegetarian? Well, for my reasons, it was purely ethical and environmental. I didn't like the way animals are treated. I don't like the resource extraction practices that go into meat production. And it's really not necessary to live a well-balanced, healthy lifestyle. There are other reasons, economic. So being a vegetarian is much more affordable simply because a pound of beans can get you so much further than a pound of beef. But a pound of beef can cost you I don't buy meat, $15. A pound of lentils cost you $1 or $2, and you can feed a whole family with a pound of lentils. That's another reason that people do it. There is a health aspect to it as well, where people think it's quote unquote healthier to eat vegetarian. It is if you are eating more plant-based, but if you're focusing on eating more things like French fries and other greasy foods that are still technically vegetarian, it may not be healthier per se, but that's still a reason that people do it. And like I said, the environmental and the animal side of things, where people don't like the abuse, they don't like the intensive practices. These are some key reasons that people go vegetarian. During my transition to becoming a vegetarian, there were some key problems that I faced and I wanted to bring up in this conversation today. So I've come up with 5 tips that I wish I had when I was becoming a vegetarian, because they would have helped me so much when I was making this transition, or I sort of found them as I was going through the process, but I wish I had discovered them sooner. By listening to this podcast, if you are interested in becoming a vegetarian, you will have these skills and these ideas right off the bat, and it will make your transition all the more easy to do. My first tip is start small, especially if you're not used to eating plant-based. It might seem intimidating to cut out meat entirely from your diet. You don't want to say, okay, I eat meat 3 times a day, every day. I'm going to cut it out right now. No more. Let's go. That might work for some people, ironically, to go cold turkey, but others, it might not be. And then the second they eat meat, whether it's on purpose or by accident, they feel really guilty and they don't know if they can do the whole vegetarian thing, and they just give up. So what I suggest is starting small. Maybe do 1 meal each day. So maybe it's lunch where you have a plant-based protein like grains or beans, tofu, tempeh, things like that, instead of having meat. Or you could do 1 full day where you don't eat meat, like Meatless Mondays. That's a really popular trend that's going on now. As you become comfortable with eating a more plant-based lifestyle and it seems easier and almost second nature to you, then start building. Maybe do 2 days a week, or maybe breakfast and lunch are plant-based. And just keep going from there. See what makes your body feel good, because you want to make sure that you are fueling your body with not just enough energy in terms of calories, but also nutrients. So if you're cutting out all this meat without supplementing properly those nutrients, then your body might suffer. So it's really important to go slow, take small steps, and be in tune with your body. The second tip, which really helped me get through my vegetarian transition, the internet is your best friend. If you are stuck on recipes, if you don't know what to do, internet is amazing, especially Pinterest. There's so many meat substitution recipes out there, really creative things, really cool ideas for food that it's impossible to say, okay, I don't know what to cook. You can just go on there. If you have a few ingredients in your fridge, look it up and you'll find something. Super easy. Also, it's really a useful tool when you have some sort of ingredient that you don't know how to prepare well. Maybe it's tofu or tempeh. Those are things that people are very intimidated to cook, especially right off the bat. So just look up on the internet different ways that you can prepare that specific item, or what the do's and don'ts are, or how long you can store that item for. When you're going through all this newness in your life in terms of your diet, it's really important to make sure that you are feeling comfortable and you are excited to be doing what you're doing. So using the internet to find inspiration and to make sure that you are properly preparing ingredients, or to give you ideas for how to prepare those ingredients, will help you feel more comfortable with that transition. The third tip is look at what you already eat. I think people don't realize that a lot of what they're eating is plant-based, or at least there are many dishes that we consume that don't have meat in them. For instance, a peanut butter sandwich or a grilled cheese. A grilled cheese it does have animal byproducts, it does have cheese, it doesn't have meat. So if you're interested in becoming a vegetarian, that's a great option. If you want to be vegan, you can make a grilled cheese with vegan cheese. And I know some people say, oh, vegan cheese is gross. There are some really gross ones out there, I will not deny that, but there are some pretty decent brands out there as well. So it's just about trying different brands, seeing what flavors you like, see what replicates the taste that you want, and finding that and enjoying that. So look at what you are already consuming, what you already like to eat, what dishes you don't want to cut out of your life, and then figure out ways that you can alter them. So like I said, grilled cheese, vegan cheese if you don't want to eat any animal products, or you can eat grilled cheese and that's vegetarian. You can eat pasta with a nice pesto sauce, or instead of a meat sauce with tomatoes, you can do a soy product with tomatoes, all these different things. Do what you like, eat what you like. That's what's most important. That ties into the fourth tip, which is don't force things on yourself that you know you do not like. I know people who, when they're trying to eat more plant-based, they say, okay, well, tempeh is really trendy. I'll get a tempeh burger. But they know they don't like tempeh. And just watching them struggle through that burger is the most uncomfortable thing and the most painful thing, not just for them, but for myself. Because I'm like, why are you doing this to yourself? You don't need to be doing that. You could have ordered something else and been fine. So if you know you don't like something, don't try to force it on yourself because you think that societal obligation for you to be eating something because that's what's considered the ideal vegetarian meal. If you don't like tempeh burgers, don't order a tempeh burger. You could order a different veggie burger if you like that. If you want to order Beyond Meat, do that. That's whatever you want to do. Some people don't like that. I personally don't want to eat Beyond Meat all the time just because it's not health. Even when I was eating meat, I didn't eat burgers that much because they're not that great for you. And I don't want to be doing that now because even though there's Beyond Meat, because that's still not great for you and you can't understand half the ingredients in that. So that's not something that I want to do. Obviously, if there's no other options, I will gladly take it. But if there are options, I'm not going to force myself to eat something I don't want to enjoy because that doesn't make me want to keep going through this process. If you're eating things that you don't like to eat, You're not going to like them anymore as you continuously eat them. It's not going to work that way. Maybe you'll build a tolerance, but you won't enjoy it. So make sure you're eating things that you are excited about and you really enjoy. Otherwise, you won't want to keep going with this process. You won't want to keep pushing forward. You might just want to give up. And that's not the goal with becoming vegetarian. You want it to be a long-lasting, continuous process that you can carry on through your life that is sustainable, not just environmentally, but for your own body. At the same time, this is one of the biggest things that I have learned through my process. For the last tip, I want you to be adventurous. So you might know that you don't like tempeh burgers, but have you ever tried a Seitan Reuben sandwich? I don't know how to pronounce what that particular ingredient is. I've heard different pronunciations, so if you know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. But it's spelled Seitan. So if you've never tried an ingredient before, don't knock it until you try it. You might really enjoy it. So I think Seitan, whatever it is like wheat gluten or something like that, some random thing that you might, when you hear the name, say, what the heck, I don't want to eat that. That sounds gross. But I thought that too, but then I was like, why don't I just try it? I'm at this fancy, super cool vegetarian restaurant that tries to make comfort foods vegetarian or vegan. So why don't I try this dish? And I tried it and I found out I really liked wheat gluten or Seitan, which I would not have known if I wasn't being adventurous. And I have found so many other items or food products that I love because I decided to be adventurous. That's one of my favorite things about becoming vegetarian. It's that you're not just cutting foods out of your life, you're adding things into your life. You're finding ways to be creative and incorporate different dishes and different cuisines into your life. There are some cultures where their cuisine is very focused on plant-based foods. And if you like that kind of cuisine, you can teach yourself how to make those dishes, or you can go out to restaurants where you have those dishes and you're trying all these new delicacies that might be very critical to cultures around the world, and you also really enjoy it, and they're cheap to make and they're easy to make. So if you're not being adventurous, you won't find these new favorites and you won't find that way to immerse yourself in other cultures and understand what kind of food culture goes on there. And I just love immersing myself in the food culture. It's just so interesting to see how people engage with food around the world and why they engage with it in a certain way and what the histories are behind those foods. And so by being adventurous, you get to get a hint of that culture and you get to eat some good food while doing it. So while you don't want to force yourself to eat things you don't like, be adventurous with things you haven't tried, or maybe you tried it 10 years ago and you didn't like it, but your taste buds change a lot. Like, I used to hate celery. I hated celery so much my whole life. And then one day this past winter, it was in the middle of my workday, and I was just really craving raw celery, and I didn't know why. And it was crazy. And then the next time I did groceries, I went out and bought raw celery, and I loved it. And I don't know what the heck happened, but even though celery is not that adventurous of a food, you get what I'm saying. Sometimes you just have to listen to your body. If something sounds cool or something sounds really interesting, try it, and you might find your new favorite. In summary, my 5 tips for becoming a vegetarian will help you make this transition easier. It will save time, it will save money, it will make you excited to become a vegetarian, not feel intimidated. And you get to experience new things. You get to see life in a new light, in a new perspective, and you get to engage with different cultures around the world, and you get to have fun while doing it. So you get to help the planet, help your body, and have fun, which that seems like a pretty good deal to me. So just a reminder, the 5 tips are: start small. You don't want to overwhelm yourself. It's easier to build up and feel confident in what you're doing and feel comfortable. The second tip is that the internet is your best friend in terms of finding inspiration and ideas for meals, and also just tips for how to prepare ingredients you're not too familiar with. Third is to look to what you already eat and see what is vegetarian or what you can make alterations to so that you are eating things that you still enjoy. Fourth, Don't force things on yourself that you know for a fact you don't like. If I wasn't craving celery that one day, I would not go out and buy a bunch of celery and force myself to eat it until I barfed, because that's not the goal. You want to enjoy your food in a more sustainable way. And then lastly, be adventurous. Try new things, explore, learn things about other people and other cultures, and find your new favorites. I hope these tips helped you. I know they helped me as I was becoming a vegetarian, and I just want to make this transition easier for all of you so that all of us can take these actions to create a more sustainable world in different ways. Your diet is one part of the whole sustainability picture, and it's a really important part, but there are so many other aspects. This episode was teaching you how to make your diet more sustainable and how it's realistic for you. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, please rate, comment, and subscribe to the podcast. I would love to hear from you. I would love to hear some of your own tips for how you became a vegetarian or how you are incorporating plant-based meals into your life. I will also, in the show notes, provide some tips for becoming a vegetarian from my blog. So some of my most popular blog posts with recipes, my favorite restaurants, some important tips to keep in mind when becoming a vegetarian, all that good information. And also on social media, I share a lot of information about plant-based eating. So I try to post about a day in the life or what I'm doing. And so you'll get to see what I'm cooking, how I'm cooking it, new discoveries I'm finding with food, new restaurants, all that awesome stuff. So if you want to follow me on my daily journey in that way to get everyday tips for becoming a vegetarian or inspiration for living more plant-based, make sure to follow those accounts, which I've also linked in the show notes. That is all for today. I hope you enjoyed this episode and learned a thing or two about becoming a vegetarian. I hope these tips have inspired you, and as soon as this podcast is over, you start implementing them in your life. If you do, let me know in the comments or on social media. That would be awesome. And I hope you have a great day. Until next time.